the British Isles were changed not by one war, but by three interconnected conflicts.
To understand this catastrophe, we must analyze the three deep fractures Charles I ignored. Fracture 1. England. Political. Parliament challenged the king's divine right over taxes and law.
We will not stand for this betrayal.
Fracture 2. Scotland. Religious. They refused the king's Anglicanism, defending their strict Presbyterianism. Fracture 3. Ireland. Ethnic and land. Decades of English settlement fueled a Catholic desire for reversal.
The scale of the massacre was immediately exaggerated in English propaganda. It became a propaganda tool, a story of papist conspiracy aimed at destroying all Protestants.
The true catalyst, however, was Ireland. The 1641 Irish Rebellion was a desperate revolt by Gaelic Catholics against Protestant land seizures. This fear created an impossible dilemma for King Charles I. He needed an army to suppress the Irish, but Parliament refused to give him control of that army. They
Treason
feared
against
he
the
would
very
use
heart of this
Catholic-raised
kingdom.
troops to crush them first. The Irish War became
I see the
a
birds have
political
flown.
weapon. By demanding military control, Parliament challenged the king's authority, where he held absolute power. When Charles failed to arrest his opponents, he fled London. The English Civil War was inevitable. For 2 years, the war in England was a bloody stalemate. The turning point lay north, in Scotland. Scotland's main priority was defending their Presbyterian faith from Charles I's attempts to impose Anglican liturgy.
The Scots were not fighting for Parliament, they were fighting for their covenant. Their independence lay in their church.
In 1643, Scotland signed the Solemn League and Covenant with the English Parliament. In exchange for the English promising church reform, Scotland sent their formidable army south.
Charge!
The
For
entry
God
of the
and for Parliament!
Covenanters broke the stalemate. It created the single largest fighting force the
North is
Royalists
lost.
had ever faced.
Rally what remains of the
Marston
southern
Moor
levies.
was the
We must
decisive
hold
blow.
the river at all
The
costs.
king lost control
They
of the
marched
north,
completely
and
unopposed.
the
How could we
unified
lose the north so quickly?
Anglo-Scottish
The
front
unified front is
appeared
stronger than
unstoppable.
anticipated, sire. All is lost.
The War of the Three Kingdoms entered its endgame. In 1646, Charles I surrendered to the Scots. The Scots, having been paid handsomely by Parliament, handed the king over, a final act of political calculation.
Charles I was actively negotiating with the Catholic Confederacy to bring an army over. He was playing everyone against each other, the perpetual focus of instability.
The
We will not be
execution of
moved from our
Charles
convictions.
I in January 1649 was not an act of revenge, but a radical political necessity to end the cycle of war. By removing the king, Parliament hoped to sever the link that held the three crowns and the three wars together. The execution of the king did not bring peace. It brought Oliver Cromwell. First, the Irish
Cromwell's
War
invasion
was
of
ruthlessly
Ireland began
ended.
in August
The massacres at
1649,
Drogheda and
with his
Wexford
army
were
landing
brutal
in
acts
Dublin.
of retribution.
Cromwell's conquest was a total transfer of land and power that defined Anglo-Irish relations for centuries.
Next, the Scots were crushed after they proclaimed Charles II as their new king. By 1653, the wars were over. The three kingdoms were forcibly united under the English Commonwealth. The Wars of the Three Kingdoms achieved political unity.
Whereas
But
it has
this unity
pleased the
was
Almighty
achieved
God.
through conquest and oppression,
We are now as a
not
flock
consent.
of sheep without a shepherd. The victorious English won freedom from the crown, but lost it to Cromwell's military regime.
The Scots won their religious freedom, only to be forcibly occupied by their former ally. The Irish lost everything: land, faith, and political agency. The central lesson of the three wars was simple. The single crown was the fatal flaw. The attempts to force religious conformity and political obedience across three distinct nations made the conflict inescapable. The seeds of future conflicts in Ireland, in Scotland, were sown not just in the fighting, but in the peace that followed.
I go from a corruptible crown to an incorruptible crown.
A very short way, sire, a very short way.
But when examining Irish-English relations, we must consider the perpetual focus of instability.
Exactly, and the economic impact.
What do you make of all of this, then?
He was playing everyone against each other. That perpetual focus of instability defined the era.
I have a good cause, and I have a gracious God.
Cromwell believed the Lord had delivered the three nations into the hands of the godly English.
We are here to humble and subdue. Let God arise, and let his enemies be scattered.
This was a victory of principle, but secured through overwhelming brutality.
Hold the line! Steady, men! Now, for Scotland! Charge!
God save the king.
The cycle of
Long
war
live the king.
restarted,
May the king
forcing Cromwell
live
to
forever.
campaign in Scotland. Scottish military might, built on religious conviction, was ultimately no match for the new model army. In Ireland, the final acts of conquest solidified centuries of conflict and resentment. Land ownership shifted irrevocably, creating a colonial dependency that would last for generations. For England, the Commonwealth was a period of radical but unstable experiment. The cost of liberty was dictatorship. By 1653, the three crowns were replaced by one military ruler. The final analysis shows that Charles I's failure was his inability to grasp that three distinct national identities could not be governed as one. The English Civil War was simply the central theater for a much larger, unavoidable conflict of three peoples. The political unity was temporary, but the historical scars were permanent. When the monarchy returned, it did so with severely limited power, a fundamental
This
change
courtyard is where the
secured
leaders
by the
of the
blood
1916
spilled
Rising
across
were
three
executed.
nations.
It's a very solemn place.
Ultimately, the wars of the three kingdoms were not about who should rule, but how a people should be governed. And that question, forged in fire and conflict, continues to echo through the centuries.